Is it clear?
It's
Yeah.
clear.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally
So
audible.
let's start the editorial. So someone was asking what is an editorial. I'll tell you that first. So daily at 11:15 a.m. we have the editorial session from Monday to Saturday. Sunday we don't have it because there's no editorial in the newspaper. Usually we take it from the Hindu newspaper and at times Indian Express also. So now what do we do in an editorial? It's basically how to read passages and comprehend, and plus we get to know what's happening around the world, and a bit of grammar and vocabs are also there. So you could say it's a perfect combination of, like, if you want to improve your English.
Great.
So I'll start the
That's
editorial
great.
now. Yeah. Okay, guys, just mute yourselves, okay, everyone. I'll start with the editorial. So before starting with today's editorial, I've taken 3 words from today's editorial because we always have this tendency to always, like, we ask questions to each other that how to improve our vocabs. It's not, see, we can learn plethora of words, but if you're not using them in our day-to-day life, then it's of no use. So I've taken 3 words from today's editorial. The first one is abysmal, which means something that is extremely bad. Second is imperative, something that is crucial or vitally important. And the third one is a phrase, do right by. It means when you treat someone fairly, like I want to do right by the children, like I want to treat them fairly. So let's start with the editorial now. I'll start. Bridging the gap on India's gender inequality. So recently what happened was, if you are aware about the current affairs, so there had been a report was out in which it talked about the gender inequality in various countries, and the ranking of India wasn't that good one. So today the other author is telling us about the report that has been out. Okay. India needs to help women get better access to jobs and resources. So now what they're saying here is that what India needs, like we need to give due share to the women in terms of jobs and resources. Let's start with the editorial now. The struggle to achieve gender equality and bridge the gap between men and women is a long and difficult one. So I've already highlighted this, bridge the gap. It's a phrase. It means that when you try to bridge a gap means you try to lessen something. Gap means when there is a gap in between, like there is a break in between. When you are, and a bridge always acts as a medium from one place to the other. So if we want to bridge the gap, like reduce this inequality, we need to do certain measures. And now what they're saying here is that this gap is between whom? Men and women, and it's a long and difficult one. Okay, there's one thing I will tell you, where this word WOMEN, there are 2 words, WOMAN and WOMEN. The first one, when there is MAN, it's a singular, and the MEN is plural. This we all know, but what happens is when it comes to the pronunciation of these words, we don't pronounce it properly. So when it is WOMAN, the singular one, we call it woman. Okay. And when it is WOMEN, it is known as women. There is a sound of V, not W. Because we said woman, it's not that, it's women and woman. I'll move to the editorial now. India has got another opportunity to do much better for half of its population with the Global Gender Gap Index for 2022 released by the World Economic Forum on Wednesday, placing it at 135 out of 146 countries. So now this line is very clear. It's simple English. Let me explain. It's just saying that India has got another opportunity to do much better for half of its population. Now, half of its population here means the females. So we have an opportunity that we can do better for these females. Why we are saying that? Because the report that was out, what was the name of the report? Global Gender Gap Index of 2022. And it was released by whom? The World Economic Forum on Wednesday. And the position of India was 135 out of 146 countries. So we can easily see that this rank is not a good one because there are just 146 countries and we have got 135 rank. Like we are very much low. So that's what it was trying to say. I'll move on to the next one. Now here, before starting it, I'll tell you one thing. So if you guys remember, like if you had been there when I used to take the editorial, if there is an old participant, I always used to tell you to break and read, if you remember. Now breaking and reading is here. I'll be explaining that how you break the lines and read. Just listen very carefully, okay, when I'm reading. But the new data hardly brings cheer as India has fared the worst in at least one of the parameters. What I did here was I skipped this line. And why did I do that? Because it was an extra information. And whenever it comes to reading editorials, or something like, even if you're reading novels, at times the authors have a tendency to write long sentences, and we might get confused that what is the author trying to say. But at that time, if we know how to break and read, then it's very easy for us to comprehend passages or anything for that matter. So now I'll explain this line. But the new data hardly brings cheer, as India has fared the worst in at least one of the parameters. So when this report was out, what happened was they checked 4 parameters, okay? And in all these 4 parameters, every country got a different rank. If we talk about India specifically, in one of the parameter, India has fared the worst. Fared the worst is another phrase. It means it has performed the worst in one of the parameters. What was the parameter? Health and survival, in which it took the last spot. It's talking about the health and survival in which it had taken the last spot. Now I'll move to this line which I skipped because I told you it's an extra information and we could read it later also. It will not really impact our comprehending skill. Now, what was it? India's ranking in 2021 was 140 out of 156 countries. So earlier, like this time it is 135, earlier it was 140. So we can say that we have performed a bit better, but not that much. That's what it is trying to say. Okay, till now, is it clear to everyone?
Yes.
Is it clear?
It's clear.
Any
That's
doubts?
clear.
Do you have any doubt here till now?
No doubts. No
No,
doubts.
it's pretty clear.
Okay. Let's move then. The Global Gender Gap Index benchmarks the current state and evolution of gender parity across 4 dimensions. Benchmark means standard. So now this Global Gender Gap Index, what it is doing, it is basically a standard of measurement of how gender parity is going on in various countries. So now what are the 4 dimensions that I already told that with 4 dimensions we came to a ranking. These are economic participation and opportunities, educational attainment, health and survival, and political empowerment. So these are the 4 parameters according to which these countries have got specific ranks, in which India has got 135. Let's move on to the next paragraph now. India ranks poorly among its neighbors and is behind Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, the Maldives, and Bhutan. So very clear. They have just told us about the neighboring countries, where they stand and where India stands. So we are behind them also. Only Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan perform worse than India in the region. So what are the countries that are behind India? The neighboring countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Iran. In 2022, coming on the back of a pandemic, war, and economic crisis, the global gender gap has been closed by 68.1%. Let's break it and read. Now, what they're trying to say here is that if you talk about 2022, coming on the back of, it's a phrase. When you come on the back of something means something, an event which is followed by some other event. Like this report is followed by the pandemic, which had hit the country, not exactly the country, but the entire world. War and economic crisis, specifically talking about the Russia-Ukraine war and the economic crisis we still are facing. The global gender gap has been closed by 68.1%. Close by means it's very near to 68.1% if we talk about the global gender gap. And what does this mean? This means at the current rate of progress, it will take 130 years to reach full parity. Full parity means equality. Like if these situations, talking about the current scenario that we are facing, if this continues, then I think that it will about take 132 years for us to reach the full attainment of global gender equality. Among all the regions, it will take the longest for South Asia to reach the target due to a broad stagnation in gender parity scores in the region. Again, I forgot to mark this. I skipped this word because it was an extra information. If we skip it right now also, it won't really impact. So now what they're saying that if we, like here they said that it will take around 132 years for us to reach this full parity. But if we talk about the specifically South Asian region, then it will be taken in 197 years. Why? Because due to a broad stagnation in gender parity scores in the region. Now here there's one thing that I will make you note. They have written this in quotes. Why they have written that? Whenever in a passage or in an editorial, something is written in quotes means the author is trying to extract the exact words of some other person. So these are the words that might be there in the report. So there, the author hasn't done anything, like he hasn't improvised it or written in his own form. So he has directly quoted those words. So that's why it's in double quotes. This is what the exact report was saying. Let's move on to this one. Again, we'll be breaking and reading it. There have been enough numbers from the ground to indicate that India has faltered on the road to gender parity. So now what they're saying that there have been enough numbers from the ground to indicate, like there have been many reasons why India has faltered on the road to gender parity. Faltered on means when you are not able, when you faltered on means when you stumble, like you're not able to perform that much efficiently when it comes to gender equality. Now let's read what was there in between. With a female population of approximately 66 crore. They're talking about the female population, like it's still a greater share. 66 crore is a greater number, yet we have faltered on providing them gender equality. Now here the author might be giving us the reasons. What are the reasons why we had faced this? In the pandemic years, as income shrank, we know income shrank because many people were unemployed. Women face hurdles on every front. On every front means in every aspect of life, not just professionally, but at their homes also and in every sector. Now, how? From food, health, if we talk about food, health, and education for the girl child to jobs. Here, why did I make this highlight? Because this had to be read together. If you try to read it in one flow, like you don't give a break here, then you might not understand. And education for the girl child to jobs, it's not making sense. So you need to break here and read. This is what is very important when it comes to breaking and reading. So now these are the parameters where the women's faced a lot of problem. The first one will be food, health, education for the girl child, and even in the jobs. The latest National Family Health Survey data of 2019 to 21, what did it show? It showed that 57% of women are anemic. Anemic, when a person is suffering from anemia, it means that there is deficiency of red blood cells, and women do have this problem. That's why we say that women should have an iron rich diet. Okay, so 57% of women are anemic, up from 53% in 15 to 16. Now, first it was 53, but now it has increased to 57. So there has been a rise. Though 88.7% of married women participate in key household decisions, only 25.4% of women aged between 15 to 49 years who worked in the last 12 months were paid in cash. So these are just statistical data which the author is trying to provide, that despite 88.7% women participating, out of them only 25.4% of the women in a specific age group were working for the last 12 months and they were paid in cash. That's what it's trying to say. Women having a bank account or saving account that they themselves use have increased to 78.6%. Just a statistical data about the bank account that women hold now, with schemes such as Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana helping, but women participation in labor force has shrunk. So now they are trying to say here is that although the number of bank accounts has increased of women to 78.6% because of certain schemes that have been taken by the government, the very prominent one when it comes to the banking one is the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. If you know about it, it's just basically you can open your bank account with a zero balance. Like when you open an account, you need to pay some amount, like you need to have a minimum amount. But when you open this type of account, it comes with a zero account balance also. You don't even need to have a money, like certain amount. Now, this is something positive there, the author said, but women participation in labor force has shrunk. Like, although we can say that the grass is greener here, but here the problem is that still the labor force participation of women is very less. Okay, till now, anyone has any doubts?
No. Continue.
Okay, I'll move ahead then. According to Center for Monitoring Indian Economy data, in 2016 to 17, about 15% women were employed or looking for jobs. Statistical data just telling us about 15% women were employed or they were looking for jobs. This metric dipped to 9.2% in 2021 to 2022. See guys, again here they are just telling us about the statistical information and just saying that how we haven't performed that much well, and that's what the author is trying to say here. The best way to improve India's abysmal ranking is to do it right by women. Now here the author is saying that if we want to improve this abysmal ranking, abysmal means that something something that is bad, okay, extremely bad. So this bad ranking, if we want to improve, now what we as nation should do, should do it right by women. Do it right by, I told you already, it means that when you provide equalities to someone. So that is what it is trying to say, that treating someone fairly. If you want to do this, then you need to treat the women fairly. For that, what do we need to do? For that, it is imperative to increase representation of women in leadership positions at all levels so that women get greater access to jobs and resources. Now, for that, what do we need to do? For it is imperative, I told you, for that, what is really important is that we need to increase the representation of women in leadership position. Like we need to give them due participation and share at all levels so that women get greater access to jobs and resources. Like you need to give them opportunities and in every aspect, give them positions of leadership as well. Then only we can achieve this aim of equality. It is up to the government to move beyond tokenism and help women staggering economic and social barriers. So now the author has ended up by saying that now it is totally depending upon the government that they need to move beyond tokenism. What is tokenism? It is basically that in order to avoid certain criticisms from the public, we try to give some due share or opportunities to the minorities. Like the public cannot say that the government is not doing anything for the minorities. So what they do is like, okay, if you are a minority, let's give that out of 10 people, 2 people will get a job, so that at least they don't say that we are not getting represented. So the government should not do that. Like it should not just focus on tokenism, like ha karna hai to karna hai, nahi karna hai. You need to do it because you need to achieve this ultimate aim of gender parity and help women overcome staggering economic and social barriers. Staggering means something that is very shocking or astonishing. So now for that, what you need to do is that you need to help the women staggering economic and social barriers. Like they need to come out of these barriers so that we achieve the ultimate aim of gender parity. We are done. Yeah. So that's the editorial. We are done with it. So does anyone have any doubt? You can ask me now. Like anything which is not clear, you can ask me. Is there anything?
What is the difference between gender parity, equity, equality?
Gender parity. What?
Gender parity, gender equity, gender equality. I'm always confused about these terms.
See, wait, even I might go wrong because I don't have that much of clarity. But when it comes to equality means you're treating everyone equal. And equity means treating everyone equal in a manner that if someone is, see, I'll give you an example and then I can explain you. So suppose let's talk about 3 sets of people, okay? One is a tall person, the other is a short one, and the other is a physically abled person. They need to climb a wall, okay? So what happens is if you're giving them equality, you're giving them ladder of equal length. That is equality. But if we talk about equity, now what do we need? If a person is tall, then will that person need a very tall ladder to cross that, to overcome that, like to move from to the other side? No. A short one would also work. But for the smaller one, you need to give what? You need to give a bigger ladder. And if a person is physically able, you need to either make a gate or something, or like a hole or something. So that is what is equity. Equality is giving everyone 100 rupees, even if the person is rich, poor. But equity comes when even if a person is poor, you can give him 100 rupees. And if a person is rich, even if you give him a 20 rupees, that will also be fine. That is equity. And talking about parity, I honestly don't know, like what exactly does it mean. Anyone who knows can explain it.
Parity is also of the same meaning. We give different expressions to a particular word, so it is almost used in the same context. Basically, when we talk about the pay and all.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Anything else? Like Eagle, I hope I made a bit clarity.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Yes.
I have a question. Could you please link the relation between a bank account and women empowerment?
Relation between a bank account and women empowerment. Okay. What could be the relation? See, I think that why do we open a bank account? Tell me that.
It's basically savings.
Savings, no? And the thing is, like women, when it comes to empowerment, why they are talking about it might be that they do not have that much of like the money that we savings for what? Savings for our own expenses. So maybe it's like that. I am also not sure that why they're talking about gender parity here. If they are not giving due shares, like they're not giving that amount. If the bank account is there, maybe they can save some amount of money for themselves. That is why maybe it's the reason. Like that's what the author might be hinting at.
But in this editorial, they actually link the savings account with labor force, right? So I presume that it could be like, even though their share has decreased in the labor force, because when we work, we get money and we do save, right? But in this context, what happens is that even though their savings account has increased, but the labor force has decreased. So it's like contrary to what should be there.
Okay, wait. Yeah. Anyone else, like in the editorial, if you have any doubt, like if something wasn't clear in the sense about any grammar or something that I talked about, the breaking and all, you can ask. Is there any doubt, guys?
No.
Then we'll come to the tone of the editorial. Yeah. So what do you think is the tone of the editorial? Like you might have read. What do you think is the tone? Anyone?
The tone is positive criticism.
Positive criticism. Okay. Altruist said positive criticism. And can you explain it? Like, why do you think it's that?
Yeah.
Give a reason.
Yeah. The point is that even though the global gender gap predicts that we fare low with respect to certain parameters, but still the author is giving some points to improve further. So this is kind of a constructive criticism which gives the government to understand the fact that we fare bad in certain areas, but still we have a scope of improvement.
Okay. Positive criticism. Okay, anyone else? Like if you have a different answer. People who are already here, tell the tone. It is not a kind of lecture we give, no? Participation is must. Just tell.
Analyzing.
Analytical. Okay. Why do you say that? Give a reason also. Yes, Patrick. Why do you think it's analytical?
I think it's informative also because they have sought help from data and they've presented a lot of information regarding the situation.
Okay. Informative. Yeah. Anyone else who has a different answer or you just want to add on to their points? Then we can conclude. Okay, no one. Yeah. Shubhika is right. The tone is informative because, see, I won't exactly deny with what Altruist and Patrick said, but when it comes about the tone, I've already said the dominating nature is what decides the tone of the entire editorial. Yes, the tone is informative because here the author is just trying to give us information about the recent gender equality, gender gap report that has been out. And we can see many statistical data like we are being compared with our neighbors and how in every aspect the percentage increase and decrease has been there. And like entire crux of the report has been given out. Even we are compared with the previous one. So a kind of complete information is given and it's more inclined towards the informative parts because there are stats to it rather than just analyzing, because the author has not just tried to tell us about the criticisms or the analysis of the report, but we are also told us about the entire report in a very detailed manner. So the dominating nature of the tone is informative. Yeah. So the tone is
I would like to make a point here. I would be in quibble with what you said. The point is that the reason why author has given certain statistics is just because he wanted to justify his reasons, or he wanted to justify his points based on those points. Because if he gave that, we had the rank of 140 previously, and this year we have 135. This means that though previous year it was out of 156 countries, and this year it is out of 146. So there is a bit improvement, but The number of countries have decreased. So this data or these kind of statistics is just given to show that or to justify his point. So in that case, I would say that, of course, it is informative based on facts or statistics. But using that statistics, the author is trying to give or analyze the situation with respect to gender gap. This is my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else? Like, if you want to say something or add on?
One point I would like to say, the way you explained, it was amazing. I do appreciate the fact that you did explain it well.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
unfathomable. It was a very nice session. Like the way you explained about giving breaks and reading so as to make us understand better. It was really commendable and impressive, unfathomable.
Hey, yeah,
Thank
it
you.
was
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.